The way I see it is we have the revived Roman Empire, right? The statue with 2 legs, east and west, made of iron, Daniel 2, and the feet, the 10 toes, made of clay and iron, right? Which is the second segment of it after the church gap, with 10 kings, 10 rulers. That's coming. We know it's coming. We see them clamping down on everything that they're doing, right? So what is our tactic? Here it is. Ready? It's this. Though the fig tree should not blossom, and there's no fruit on the vines, though the yield of the olive should fail, and the fields produce no food, again, it sounds like us. Though the flock should be cut off from the fold, and there's no cattle in the stalls because someone set a fire and killed 20,000 of them, right?
Yep.
So we have all this coming. Let's go on. 18. Yet I will exult in the Lord. I will rejoice in the God of my salvation. Despite the food shortages, despite the enemy moving in, I will exult in the Lord. I will rejoice in the God of my salvation. The Lord is my strength. Jehovah God is my strength. He has made my feet like hinds' feet and made me walk on my high places. Okay? So that says a couple things like, number one, being up on the mountains or on the hills, and you're above all the fray. You're above all that stuff. It speaks of safety and rising above the circumstances. That's what God causes us to do. If we can just do verse 18. That's the condition. Yet I will exult in the Lord. I will rejoice in the God of my salvation. Okay? If we could just do that, in spite of everything, what's the remnants? A hint. It's something greater in the text. It's not the Peshat, which is what, Mike? The Peshat is the point, the first level literal historical grammatical method. Okay, now here's what we have. We have the first 5 books of the Torah right here. Now people have noticed that first 5 books. How many books does Psalms have? 5. It consists of 5 books. I know I tricked you on that one, guys. I would have said 150.
You weren't doing this.
Oh yeah, sorry. 5 books in the Torah, 5 books in the Psalms. In fact, the Psalms books are like 1 through 41. And if you look on there in 42, it should say book 2 at the top of there. They divided into, and then right here is 42 through 72, and then 73 through 79. Okay. And then we have 90, actually 90? Oh, 89, yeah, 89, wait, 89, not 79. So 90 through, this is the book of Psalms, how it's divided into 5 different books, okay? Through 106, Psalms 106, and then 107 through 150. All right, so 5 books. Interestingly enough, the theme of the Genesis books, like Genesis, he chooses certain people, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So it's the theme is election, which also happens to be the theme of the first 5 books of Psalms. Okay, that's just a coincidence. Then we come to the next one, and it's redemption. Okay, because in Exodus, he redeems his people out of Egypt, right? That happens to be the theme of the second set of books in the Psalms. All right. Leviticus is what?
Numbers.
Sanctification. Yes. Being set aside, clean and unclean and all that other stuff, okay? How to get right with God, how to be set aside for a special purpose. And then Numbers is where they go out in the wilderness and they test and try the Lord, right? So it's the book of testing and trials. And guess what? That's exactly what the 4th book in Psalms has a theme like that. And then the last one is, get this, in Deuteronomy, he repeats the law. It's divine government. And that's what the fifth book is. Okay? So it's kind of like, those things kind of match up. Now, when we, J.R. Church wrote a book called Prophecy in the Psalms. And he's the one who came up with this, okay? So he was the real founder of Prophecy Watchers. And it was the Psalms for a Gentile year. The other one was the Torah, and that was correlating it to a Jewish year, like 5734 and stuff in their different calendar. This one correlates it to the Gentile calendar. I'm going to go through that real quick. So Psalms is the 19th book in the Bible, and each book represents a century. So 19 centuries. Each individual psalm is a year. So what year would say Psalms 20 be?
2020.
1920. Remember, there's 150 psalms. So what would this year be?
2023.
No, I'm sorry. What psalms?
2023.
What?
2023.
Psalms, like this year would be Psalms 123. Get it? So that would be 2023. All right? So that psalm would correlate to that. So what he did, he wrote this. I actually got it at home. He wrote this book. And he talked about each of the psalms, and he went through and correlated it to what happened in that year. So I'm just going to hit some highlights. And then I'm going to do what everybody will say, you can't do that, which is in the Bible codes. They say, okay, we got the Bible codes, but you can't predict the future with the Bible codes. Well, why not?
Why not?
Yeah, you could miss and maybe misinterpret, but if it holds prophetic keys written thousands of years ago that we can verify now, right? Why can't you do that? So this is an easy one, okay? So now I'm going to look at, say, Psalms. Okay, if you look at Psalms, there's a 49:4. There's a little key in there. He says this, and that's 1949, the year after Israel became a nation, right? He says, I will incline my ear to a parable. I will open dark sayings upon the harp. I will incline my ear to a parable or a mashal. That's the Hebrew, which means, get this, prophetic utterances. I will incline my ear to prophetic utterances. He's talking about the book of Psalms. And open my dark sayings upon a harp. And that dark saying is a riddle, an enigma, something that's hard to understand, something that's not real obvious. In other words, it's hidden beneath the surface. So there's prophetic utterances, and there's stuff hidden beneath the surface in these Psalms. That's what it says in Psalms 49:4. Surely the Lord God does nothing except that he reveal his secret to his servants, the prophet. Okay? His secret, his sod, his mystery. Remember, part is the Jewish interpretation method. The very last initial means sod. There's mysteries. So we see the date numbering system. Now, a common one that people look at is Psalm 17, which would be what year? 1917. What happened in 1917 that was really significant? General Allenby, the commander of the British forces, when Jerusalem was under Turkish control for like so many jubilees, I think it was 400 jubilees, not 400 jubilees, 400 years, okay, which is like 8 jubilees, which was prophesied in the, was Malachi prophecy? We'll have to go over that sometime. This guy back hundreds of years ago gave this jubilee. He gave this jubilee prophecy, which was amazing for its time. He says, like, Jerusalem shall be under, foreign control for so many jubilees. And it was exactly what he said. Verifiably so when he said that centuries ago. So it was kind of strange. But anyways, here's what happened. I'll read the verse and I'll tell you what happened. It says this, verses 8 and 9. Psalm 17, 8 and 9. Oh. Keep me as the apple of the eye. Hide me under the shadow of your wings. Keep me from the wicked that oppress me and from the deadly enemies who encompass me. So General Allenby surrounded Jerusalem. The Turkish forces were inside. Now, he was a Christian, okay, as far as I know and from reading the accounts. And then he prays the night before, I pray, Lord, that I can take this Jerusalem without a battle. I don't want anything destroyed. Okay? So he wires London and he says, ask him for instruction. Here's what he received. Isaiah 31:5. As birds flying, so the Lord of hosts would defend Jerusalem, defending as he will deliver it, passing over it, he will preserve it. Well, he's talking about birds flying over it and that Jerusalem would be preserved. Exactly what the Psalm said, protect me in the shadow of your wings, right? And here's what happens. So the next day, you get all the airplanes above there and they drop notes. And it says this. It says that General Allenby, commands you to surrender. Well, when the Arabs read it, this is so funny in a way. They saw Allen and they never saw airplanes. They interpreted that as Allah. They saw B and they interpret that as Ben. You know what that means? Son of Allah, Son of God. So the Son of God was flying above them, commanding them to surrender, and they did without a fight. And that was God. And so, yeah, I know, it's a really amazing story. Yes, but yeah, that is a cool story. And so it goes back to that Psalms about hiding into the shadow of your wings. Probably a cryptic reference to the airplanes. And it goes on to say in Psalm 17, they have compassed us in our steps. They have set their eyes bound to the earth, like as a lion that is greedy of its prey, as if it were a young lion lurking in secret places. And of course, the symbol for Great Britain is what? A lion. It says it's greedy for its prey, so they turn their backs on the Jews. They renege on their agreement. Okay? And then they start declining as a world power. Okay, and the funny thing is, see if anyone can figure this out. At the time when Jerusalem was recaptured, this is kind of on the side, Sale Harrison, he wrote in an article, the sacred city which has been under Gentile yoke for exactly 2,520 years was freed. That goes back to the Babylonian captivity. From the Babylonian captivity up to now, they said, it was under Jewish control for 20 years. Now, why is that 2,520 significant? Anyone know? First half, how many days of the tribulation period? 1,260. Second half, how many days? What does that add up to? 2520. So in the same way, the years they were under control when they freed it in 1917 goes back to days as the number of days that the Gentiles will get it back. Does that make any sense?
The Gentiles during the tribulation get Jerusalem back.
Yes, and in Matthew 24:15. Therefore, when you see the abomination of desolation standing where it should not be, you who are in Judea flee to the mountains. Okay? And we're going to actually kind of cover that one too. And something else significant. Guess which day Jerusalem was freed? Remember I said everything happens on a feast? It was the first day of Hanukkah. Okay? Again, it's always on a feast or it relates to a feast. In fact, I was watching a video talking about when they passed this, the Gay Marriage Act. It was the same time that when they regathered, when the Jews regathered for the temple and the opening under Nehemiah, and they married foreign wives, and that was the only time God said, no, you're not to do that. So on the very same day that, this is according to Jonathan Cahn, that God told them that's not the right kind of marriage. It's the very same day that they passed the, rights, or what's it called? The rights of marriage, or we're happy about marriage, but we're going to destroy it act. Whatever it is. Okay, so everything, if you correlate it back to a Jewish feast or something, it's there, right? Okay, let's look at Psalms 44. What year would that be?
1944.
Yeah, okay, that's right. During the Holocaust and World War II, here's what it says. Yea, for your sake we are killed all day long. We are counted as sheep for the slaughter. Was that happening at that time? Oh, yeah. And the gematria for 44. 44 gematria is the mem, okay, 2 letters, and the dalet. And that spells the word judgment. Wow. That's kind of interesting. Okay.
What verse on 44? I'm sorry.
Oh, no, I'm glad you asked me. 22. So Psalm 44:22 tells us, for thy sake we are killed all the day long. All right? And to get 44 in the gematria, the mem and the dalet, that's the Hebrew word for judgment. For the rejection, the stuff that they went through because of the rejection of the Messiah. Okay, so they had, 40 jubilees of wandering the earth and being persecuted and stuff. Not that God approved of it. I'm not saying that. Psalms 48 equals what? 1948? What happened then? Israel becomes a nation. Let's look at 40. 4 through 6. It says this, for lo, the kings of the earth were assembled, that they passed by together. They saw it, and they marveled. And they were troubled and hastened away. Fear took upon them, and pain as of a woman in travail. And so people relate the kings to the General Assembly of the United Nations and how they were dismayed about Israel becoming a nation again. And you can go through a whole big rigmarole on that and how that all relates to 1948 and then becoming a nation again. So they've seen, and the gematria for 48, okay, is the mem and the het. Okay, that equals 48, and that means to be prosperous, to bloom again. All right.
You're 48 years old.
You should prosper and bloom. It also means fat. So, which is the Hebrew word for prosperous. It really is. That's a Hebrew word. That's literally what it's for prosperous. Okay, now we're going to do something that I'm not supposed to do, and that's apply it to the future. Okay? Let's just suppose 2030 is the second return. All right. So let's look at the year 2023, which is what? Okay, yes. It's also Psalms 123, right? All right, let's see what it says. It starts off this way. Listen to this. Unto you I lift up my eyes, O you who dwells in the heavens. Unto you I lift up my eyes, to you who dwell in the heavens. What are you doing? You're looking up for God. What are you supposed to do about the rapture? Expecting and looking up for his return. Okay, all right, we'll look at that. And then in 2025, I kind of see in there, which of course is Psalms 125, says this, 1 through 2. They that trust in the Lord shall be as Mount Zion, which cannot be moved, but abideth forever. As the mountains are around Jerusalem, so the Lord is about his people, henceforth and evermore. That's when the 144,000 are sealed. And if you go to Revelation 14, guess what? Verse 1. And behold, I looked, the Lamb stood on Mount Zion, and with them 144,000. They're on Mount Zion. And here it mentions God protecting them as Mount Zion. All right, now here's the kicker. So we should look at the abomination of desolation, right? Maybe that would be a key one. This is 20, okay, let me see here. 27, okay? You might say, wait a minute, Ed, that looks like 4 years. Because it's 3 years plus another half year, which takes you into the next year. Because the rapture and the beginning of the tribulation's Day of Atonement. Okay. So 2027 equals Psalms, 127. Listen to this. And this is 127:1. All right. Here we go. Unless the Lord builds the house, they labor in vain who built it. Unless the Lord guards the city, the watchman keeps awake in vain. So what's the house? The temple. It's in vain because the Lord didn't build it. It was the Antichrist. And
But that refers to our families too. Our homework.
yes, but remember, Solomon said, who am I to build a house for the Lord? So the temple is referred to as a house in the Old Testament. Okay, and so what happens at, again, Matthew 24:15, the abomination of desolation when they flee. Now what happens in Luke 21:20? The house, right at the midpoint in that, which is actually a different event, but I'm saying it's a remnant also of the abomination of desolation. The armies surround Jerusalem. Okay, and look what it says. The watchman keepeth awake in vain. What's the watchman do? He looks for the armies to come to alert everybody. According to Luke 21:20, I'm saying that's also an event that's going to happen with abomination of desolation. So it refers both to the temple, building it in vain, and it refers to the watchman watching in vain. It doesn't matter if you see it, it's going to happen. Okay, everybody kind of got that? So that's kind of a reference in two ways. And then the last year of the tribulation, which is 2029, you can figure out what psalm it is. 129, it says this, talking about 5 and 6. Let them all be confounded and turn back who hate Zion. Let them be as grass upon the housetop, which withers after it grows up. Short roots. So he's warning the wicked in the last year of the tribulation. Judgment's coming. The very next Psalm, 130, which is the year 2030, says this. It says, he shall redeem Israel from all of his iniquities. Okay? He's going to redeem Israel. What does he do when he returns? He forgives Israel and redeems them. And then the very next Psalm, which is 131, which is the first year of the millennial kingdom, it says, let Israel hope in the Lord from henceforth and forever. So there you go. Does that line up? Is that kind of contrived? Well, you guys determine, okay? You guys determine. Now, I'm going to go to the last thing. Now, this is something you won't see anywhere. Okay, God works in patterns, right? We've done that ad nauseum. He's a God of patterns. And I'll give you one of them, okay? Here's one of the patterns he works in. Remember 2,000-year patterns, right? Because from Adam to who?
Jesus.
Nope. To Abraham was what? 2,000 years. Okay, from Abraham to Jesus was what? 2,000 years. That's 4,000 years. And then from Jesus until what? Second return.
2023.
Second return is what? 2,000 years. And then the seventh 1,000 years, what? The millennial kingdom. Ours, all the early church fathers wrote, and all the rabbinic writers in the BC wrote, oh, that's going to be the messianic reign, 1,000-year reign. Okay, now here's another pattern. And then I'm going to get to it from Abraham to Joseph. Okay, how many years do you think that was? Take a guess. No, it's actually about 400. Okay, then if you go from Joseph to Egypt, what was it?
400.
Yes, how'd you know?
We're patterns.
Oh, yeah, okay.
I'm catching on.
Okay, I thought you memorized it. Okay, then from that's when they leave Egypt, and then from the Exodus until the monarchy, what do you think that would be? Just take a guess. 400 years. Ooh. Okay, and from the monarchy until the exile, okay, is what? 400 years. Okay, so we see a pattern. Now I'm going to show you this strange pattern that I've warned you about that's coming up And then God showed me how to apply it, and this will blow your mind. Okay, first we're going to start, I'm going to remind you, Daniel 70-week prophecy, right? What does that encompass? How many years? 490, 70 times 7, right? Like, who was it that's going to be avenged 70s fold or whatever? And then Jesus later says, well, forgive him 70 times 7. But applied to this is 490 years. So we're going to look at that pattern of 490 years. Now, I didn't sit down and figure all this out. This is like from Chuck Missler and Clarence Larkin. I carefully document everything. Okay, so we're going to look at the first period of time. Okay, Genesis 12:4. Abraham was 75 years old when he received the promise. So that's plus 75. From the birth of Abraham to the promise was 75 years. Okay, now, according to Galatians, 3:17, you have this. From the Abrahamic covenant, when he received the promise at 75, to the law, okay, from the Abrahamic covenant to the law was 430 years. All right? How many years is that? Because I can't add. 505. Isn't that astounding? Oh, wait a minute. We're supposed to come out with, I'm sorry, you're supposed to come up with 490, right? Guess what? Ishmael was on the scene for 15 years before Isaac was born. So let's subtract 15 years. What do you come out with? 490.
Tell me why we're going to subtract 15 years.
Because he was the son of the flesh. And Isaac was the son of the promise. So it doesn't count.
That's right.
So it doesn't count. So you come up 490 years. Okay, that's kind of contrived. Wouldn't you say, Bill? Yeah, it's kind of contrived. Okay. He's not supposed to. He's not. This is Missler. You're a Missler fan. Oh, forget it. All right. Can't get any support here. Now, so that's for that first period is from Abraham, okay, to to Isaac, okay, when he was born. First period, 490 years, exactly. Okay, let's go on to the next period, okay? So that was begun, let's see here. That is from the Exodus, okay, when they're in Egypt, to the temple. All right, that's where they put the second period. Now, if we do that, if you go to 1 Kings 6 through 8, all right, and then you add in 638, it's 594 years, okay? And you have to just go through and do all the calculations, and it was 7 years to build the temple. All right, that's 601 years. Then you go to the book of Judges. Here's a weird thing. The years that they were under the servitude of other nations, you add them all up, and I get it all right here. It's 111 years. Exactly. All the years that they were under servitude by foreign nations. And what do you think you come out to?
490.
490 years. So you take out the son of the flesh, that doesn't count. You take out years they were under servitude, that doesn't count. You come out 490 years. All right, let's go to the third one. The fourth one's going to be easy. Okay, this is from the dedication of Shlomo's temple. You know who that is, right, Elisheva? Yeah. Because I did it. She told me one time, you're up there, and all of a sudden you start saying Shlomo, and I didn't even know who you're talking.
Speaking English before you go into Hebrew. I'm learning it.
Yeah. Shlomo. I like that. I don't know. Dedication of Shlomo's temple to decree to restore and rebuild Jerusalem. Okay, I'm just going to make this quick. And this is from Clarence Larkin. He documents all of this. All right. And that is basically 560 years. Okay. But there's something strange here.
Read that word to me, what you just put.
Dedication of Solomon's temple to the decree of Xerxes Longimanus is 560 years. But then how long were they in Babylon?
7.
What does that add up to?
490.
490. Wow. Okay. Now let's go to the last. The last one's easy. Everybody knows the last one. Someone tell me, please. Come on.
2023.
2030.
What is 20?
Daniel 9:24 through 27. From the going forth of the decree to restore and rebuild Jerusalem into Mashiach Nagi until Messiah the Prince. Okay, it talks about 69 weeks, and then that 70th week is about to come up, so that's 490 years, right? So that's 490 years. Okay, so essentially what we got is God worked with Israel for 4 periods of 490 years. I thought, okay, that's kind of cool. God working in patterns and stuff, right? Now, I'm going to erase that, and then I'm going to show you something pretty astounding. So the total amount of time that God worked with Israel, minus like their captivities, minus the son of the flesh, all that stuff, is 4 periods of 490 years, which is what? 1,960 years. All right. He works with Israel when they're in the land, for 1,960 years. And then comes the great judgment that took them out of the land. He worked with them that long in the land. What's the great judgment that dispersed them and took them out of the land? 70 AD. That was the big judgment that took away Judaism, took away the Levitical priesthood, took away the temple, right? Would you say that? Of course, a bigger judgment's coming up, but for the last 2,000 years, this is the big judgment. What if God works with Israel the same amount of time now, from 70 AD? 1,960 years. Oh, let's see here. 1,960 years plus 70 years is what? 2030. You guys have never seen that on the internet, have you? I'm telling you.
That is something right there.
Yeah. Okay, good. I saw some jaws drop. So some people are like, no, seriously, think about that one. I've kicked that around for years. And I was trying to apply it to the church. It would never come out. But then now I applied it to, in fact, I thought the Rapture was 1992 because of that. You know, I took this crucifixion and all that, you know, from 32 and all. But it applies to Israel. So if you go from 70 AD, the final dispersion, the final judgment, and you add the same amount of time he worked with them in the land, 2030. That's when he returns, and he returns the Jews back to the land, and that is the end of the times of the Gentiles. They will trample it underfoot, and we know it's not ended with the rapture. Okay, that's the fullness of the Gentiles. It ends when he returns to the second coming, because they're kicked out of Israel, right in the middle, abomination and desolation, and then they will be able to return in the year of the Yovel, the year of Jubilee. Because what's one of the things that happens in the year of Jubilee? The land returned to its owner, the original owner. It belongs to God, and he gave it to the Jews, and it's going to return back to the Jews. The thing I would put right alongside of that I've already covered is 30 AD and 70 AD. If you go from 30 AD with the 50-year cycle, right, Jubilee cycle, and 70 AD with the 49-year cycle, and they're both, to me, concurrent, where did they meet? Where did they meet? Only one place in 2,000 years. 2030.